What kind of father tells his own son he's nothing and then throws him out on Christmas night? I still ask myself that question sometimes, even though I know the answer. The truth is, my father never saw me as anything more than a disappointment wrapped in failure, tied with the ribbon of a career he considered beneath him. But that Christmas, the one where everything changed, I walked into his house believing things might be different. Jory was pregnant. Surely that would soften him. Surely a grandchild would matter. I was wrong. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The driveway was lined with those expensive luminaries Marla insisted on every year. Jory squeezed my hand as we approached the door, her breath visible in the December air. She wore the green dress I'd bought her, and even 6 months along, she looked beautiful. "It'll be fine," I told her, though my stomach was already tightening. The door opened before we could knock. Cousin Trent stood there with a glass of something amber in his hand, grinning like he'd just heard the world's funniest joke. Well, the hero arrives. He stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy. Inside, the house smelled like roasted meat and expensive candles. Everything gleamed. The hardwood floors, the crystal chandelier, the polished silver frames holding photos of family members who'd actually made something of themselves. None of those frames held my picture. Eldon sat at the head of the dining table, already positioned like a king holding court. He looked up when we entered, his expression shifting from neutral to something colder. "You're late," he said. "Traffic was heavy. Merry Christmas, Dad." He grunted and returned his attention to his wine glass. Marla emerged from the kitchen, offering Jory a thin smile. "Jory, how are you feeling?" "Good, thank you. The baby's been kicking a lot lately." Marla's smile flickered. "How nice." Aunt Rhea sat at the far end of the table, studying her phone. She glanced up, nodded at me, then went back to scrolling. We took our seats. Mine was at the opposite end from Eldon, naturally. The dinner started with small talk that felt more like a performance. Eldon dominated, discussing some deal his company had closed. I cut my roast and said nothing. "Silas," Eldon said suddenly, his voice cutting through the conversation, "I heard you got passed over for that supervisor position again." The table went quiet. Jory's fingers tightened around mine. "It wasn't the right time," I said carefully. "Not the right time." He repeated my words like they were a punchline. "You've been with that rescue outfit for 12 years, and you're still hauling equipment and taking orders from kids half your age. Someone has to do the actual work. You could have joined the company when you had the chance. Instead, you're playing ambulance driver at 38. "I save lives," I said quietly. "You lift stretchers." He set his glass down hard. "There's a difference between saving lives and doing manual labor with a hero complex." Jory shifted beside me. I pressed her hand gently. "Don't." "Before we move on, I want to address something." Eldon looked directly at me now. "Marla and I have been discussing the future. Our future. The family's future. We've updated our estate plan, made some necessary adjustments to reflect who's actually contributing to this family's legacy and who's just taking up space." My pulse quickened. Jory went very still beside me. "You're out, Silas. Out of the will. Out of any future inheritance. Out of this family's financial structure entirely." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "You've made your choices. You chose a nothing career, a nothing life, and now you're about to drag a child into that mess. I won't pretend anymore that you're part of what we're building here." The room seemed to tilt. I heard Jory make a small sound beside me. "You're cutting me out," I said slowly. "On Christmas." "I'm making a practical decision. You're 38 years old and you have nothing. No real career, no prospects, no financial stability, and now you're having a baby. I'm not going to enable this anymore." "We didn't come here asking for money." "Then what did you come for?" His voice rose. "To show off that you're about to become a father when you can barely take care of yourself?" I stood up slowly. Jory stood with me, her face pale. "We came because I thought you might want to know about your grandchild. I thought maybe that would matter to you." "A grandchild raised in poverty by a man who never amounted to anything? Why would I celebrate that?" Trent laughed. Actually laughed. Aunt Rhea stared at her plate. "You should leave," Eldon said. "Both of you. This is a family gathering, and clearly you're not family anymore." I felt Jory trembling beside me. The baby she carried had just been rejected before it even drew its first breath. I looked at my father, and something inside me went very quiet, very calm. "I have something for you," I said. "A gift. I left it under the tree." Eldon frowned. I don't want anything from you. You might want this. I turned and walked toward the living room. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, 12 feet tall, with presents arranged underneath. I knelt down and placed a small box, wrapped in simple brown paper, right in the center. "What is that?" Marla asked from the doorway. "A reminder," I said. "Open it whenever you want." I stood and took Jory's arm. We walked toward the front door. "Silas," Eldon called out. "You walk out that door and we're done. Completely done." I turned back to look at him one last time. "We've been done for a long time, Dad. You just never noticed." We walked out into the cold. The door slammed behind us, and I heard Trent say something inside, his voice muffled but gleeful. Then another voice. What did he just leave under the tree? The apartment was cold when we got home. Jory sat on our worn couch, still wearing her coat, staring at nothing. "Do you want tea?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "What are we going to do?" "We're going to be fine." "Silas." "We're going to be fine," I repeated. I filled the kettle and set it on the stove. "We don't need him. We never did." "He said those things about our baby," Jory whispered. "About our child." I sat beside her and pulled her close. She was crying now, silent tears that soaked into my shirt. "Our baby will be loved," I said into her hair. "That's more than I ever got from him." We sat together as the apartment slowly warmed. Neither of us talked much. My father had disowned me on Christmas because he thought I wasn't good enough, because my job saving lives didn't measure up to his standards of success. My phone buzzed. A notification from the family group chat. I picked it up and read the message from Trent. He better not come back for anything. Several laughing emojis followed. Then a message from Marla. "This is for the best." I deleted the chat. Blocked all of them. "You're shaking," Jory said. "I need to walk." She nodded slowly. I bundled up and stepped outside. The neighborhood was quiet, just a few houses still showing Christmas lights. I walked without direction, thinking about how it had come to this. The pattern had always been there. Eldon dismissing everything I did, the science project when I was 12 that he barely glanced at, joining the rescue service at 20 and being called a fool, sitting at the kids' table into my 30s while Trent got respect for joining the company. Year after year of being made to feel small. My phone buzzed again. Not the family chat. I'd blocked that. This was a text from Doug Keats, the elderly neighbor who lived near Eldon. "Silas, saw you and Jory leave earlier. Are you both all right? Call me if you need anything. DK." I typed back, "We're okay, thank you for asking." His response came quickly. "I heard some of what was said tonight. Windows were open. I'm sorry, son." So he knew. He'd overheard Eldon disowning me. That made it more real. I walked back to the apartment slowly. When I came inside, Jory was asleep on the couch, her hand resting protectively over her stomach. I covered her with a blanket and sat in the chair across from her. I thought about our baby, about how I'd teach them to be kind, to value people for who they are, not what they earn. Everything Eldon would never understand. The next morning, I went back to work. The rescue station was quiet after Christmas, just a skeleton crew. I changed in the locker room, letting the routine steady me. "Orvin," Sam called. "Good Christmas?" "Eventful," I said. The others joked about holiday chaos. Normal life, a life I no longer felt connected to. During equipment check, my phone buzzed. An email from Eldon. Subject, final communication. "Silas, as discussed yesterday, your removal from all family financial structures is complete. Attorneys have been notified. Do not contact me or Marla again. This chapter is closed. E. Orvin." Cold. Predictable. I deleted it. Jackson walked over with a clipboard. I confirmed my shift for tomorrow. Then he added, "Personnel office needs your emergency contacts and beneficiary forms updated." Beneficiary forms. I hadn't touched them since joining the station, automatically listing Eldon as my primary because that's what you did. Family first. "I'll handle it," I said. The day crawled by. One minor call, nothing serious. My mind kept returning to Eldon's phrase, "This chapter is closed," as if I were something he could write out of existence. During lunch, I drove into town. The plaza was full of lights and holiday shoppers, festive, oblivious. I ducked into a quiet coffee shop and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. Then it rang again, Doug Keats. "Silas," he said carefully. "I overheard something last week. Your father had business people over. They were on the deck, talking. One guy asked about his family obligations. Your father laughed and said he was getting rid of obligations that don't serve the family. Then he mentioned you by name, called you a burden. My grip tightened on the cup. That's not all, Doug added. He talked about property arrangements and removing unnecessary weight from the legal framework. Sounded serious. When was this? Tuesday, December 20th. So he'd planned everything days before Christmas. The humiliation wasn't a reaction. It was a rollout. We hung up, and I sat there, replaying his words. Property arrangements. Something stirred in my memory. When I was 25, Eldon restructured his company and personal assets. I'd been asked to sign documents to keep properties in the family. I hadn't understood the details and hadn't questioned him. Suddenly, I realized I needed to know exactly what I had signed. I called Henderson and Associates. After a few transfers, a paralegal named Lisa pulled up my file. Yes, Mr. Orvin. In 2012, you signed as a co-beneficiary on several property holdings and financial instruments. I can email the documents. It will take a few days. What does co-beneficiary mean here? It means certain changes to those properties require your signature. You share legal interest with your father. My heartbeat quickened. So he can't just remove me? Not without your written consent. The trust wasn't the only thing tying me to the assets. 13 years ago, Eldon had built a structure that required multiple family signatures for major changes, to protect the wealth from a single person's decisions. He had forgotten, or never truly understood the legal framework he created. I ended the call and sat still, realizing what this meant. Eldon believed he had cut me out entirely, but there were assets he literally could not move without me. I pulled out a notepad and began listing everything I remembered: the attorney's office, the conference room, Marla, the advisor, the talk of tax strategies and legacy planning. Pieces that suddenly mattered in a way they never had before. Future generations. Like a grandchild he'd just rejected. A text came through from Jory. Are you okay? I typed back, yes, I'll be home in an hour. I love you. Love you too. I finished my coffee and walked outside. The plaza was busy now, families and couples enjoying the afternoon. Across the street, I could see the bank where I had my modest checking account. On impulse, I walked over and went inside. I need to speak with someone about beneficiary designations, I told the receptionist. She directed me to a desk where a young banker named Kevin looked up from his computer with practiced enthusiasm. How can I help you today? I need to update my emergency contact and beneficiary information for all my accounts. Certainly. Let me pull up your records. As he typed, I thought about the union benefits Jackson had mentioned, the policies I'd listed Eldon on years ago, the pension designations, the insurance policies tied to my job. Okay, Kevin said. I see you currently have your father listed as primary beneficiary on your checking and the linked savings account. Who would you like to change it to? Jory Halvin, my girlfriend. She's pregnant. His expression softened. Congratulations. Let me get the forms. While he printed paperwork, my mind kept working. The union benefits would need updating too. And if there were other policies, life insurance through the county, retirement accounts, anything else I'd forgotten about, those would all need to be changed. Eldon thought he'd removed me from his world, but maybe, without realizing it, he'd left himself vulnerable in mine. Now, I signed the bank forms and left with copies for my records. The afternoon sun was low now, casting long shadows across the plaza. People were leaving, heading home to warm houses and families who wanted them there. I drove back to the apartment and found Jory in the kitchen making soup. She looked tired, but smiled when I came in. How was work? Quiet. How are you feeling? The baby's been active. I think he's dancing. Or she. Or she agreed. She studied my face. What's going on? You look different. Different how? I don't know. Focused, like you're planning something. I hung up my coat and joined her in the kitchen. I'm just thinking. About our future, about what we need to do. Which is what? Protect ourselves, protect our family. She set down her spoon and turned to face me fully. Silas, whatever you're thinking, please be careful. I can't lose you too. You won't, I promise. I'm just making sure we're covered, legally, financially. Against your father? Against anyone who thinks we don't matter. She held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, but talk to me. Don't shut me out. I won't. We ate soup together and watched a movie neither of us really paid attention to. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I'd learned today. Property arrangements that required my signature, beneficiary designations I could change, Union benefits with clauses Eldon had never bothered to understand. Small things, scattered things. But maybe, if I was careful and methodical, they could add up to something bigger. Maybe I wasn't as powerless as Eldon believed. The rescue station was busier the next day. A water main break on 5th Street had flooded several basements, and we spent the morning helping evacuate residents and pump out water. Physical work, the kind that made your back ache and your hands raw. The kind Eldon called manual labor, with contempt dripping from every syllable. During a break, I sat in the locker room and called the union office. County Rescue Union, this is Patricia. Hi, Patricia, it's Silas Orvin. I need to schedule a time to update my beneficiary information. Sure thing. We can do that over the phone if you'd like, or you can come in. Either way works. I'll come in. I want to make sure everything's done correctly. How's Thursday afternoon? Say 2 o'clock? That works. Also, can you pull my complete benefits package? I want to review everything I'm enrolled in. No problem. I'll have it ready for you. After ending the call, I pulled up my phone's notes app and started a list. Union benefits. Update beneficiaries. Henderson and Associates. Get property documents. Bank accounts. Completed. Any other insurance policies? Review 2012 family trust papers when they arrive. The locker room door opened and Captain Morris walked in. He was in his 50s, a veteran rescuer who'd seen everything twice. He glanced at me, then did a double take. Orvin, you look like you're planning a military campaign. Just organizing some paperwork? Personal stuff? Family stuff. He nodded slowly. Family can be complicated. My brother and I didn't speak for 5 years over our dad's estate. Nasty business. What happened? Dad passed without a proper will. Everything went sideways. My brother thought he deserved the house. I thought it should be split evenly. Lawyers got involved. By the time we settled, there was barely anything left except bad feelings. He paused. We eventually worked it out, but it took time and a lot of honesty. What made you reconcile? His kid got sick, made us realize life's too short for that nonsense. He studied me. Whatever you're dealing with, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Anger makes poor decisions. I'm not angry, I said. And it was true. I wasn't. I was something else. Something colder and clearer. Morris nodded and left. I returned to my notes, adding another item. Talk to attorney about all options. But which attorney? Henderson and Associates had been Eldon's choice. I needed someone independent, someone who wouldn't have divided loyalties. Then I remembered Harlan Pike. Pike was an attorney I'd met years ago through the union. He specialized in labor law and workers' rights, but he'd helped me once with a contract dispute. Sharp mind, no-nonsense approach. And most importantly, he had no connection to Eldon. I found his number in my old contacts and called. Pike Legal Services. Mr. Pike, this is Silas Orvin. We worked together about 6 years ago on a contract review for the rescue union. I remember. How are you, Silas? I've been better. I need legal advice. Personal matter. What kind of personal matter? Family, property, inheritance. He was quiet for a moment. This sounds like it needs more than a phone conversation. Can you come to my office? When? Today, if possible. I have a slot at 4:30. I'll be there. The rest of the shift crawled by. Another call came in. False alarm at a nursing home. But otherwise it was just waiting and thinking. Miller tried to engage me in conversation about football, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling around the same questions. What exactly had I signed in 2012? What did it mean? And how could I use it? At 3:30, I changed out of my gear and drove downtown. Pike's office was in an older building near the courthouse, the kind with creaky wooden floors and frosted glass doors. His name was painted on the door in simple black letters. Harlan Pike, attorney at law. I knocked and entered. The reception area was small and cluttered with file boxes. Pike himself appeared from a back office, a tall, thin man with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Silas, good to see you again. His handshake was firm. Come on back. His office was even more cluttered than the reception area, but somehow organized. Files stacked in precise towers, books arranged by topic, yellow legal pads covered in notes but clearly labeled. So, he said, settling behind his desk, tell me what's going on. I told him everything. Christmas dinner, the disownment, the property arrangements from 2012, Doug Keats's observations, the beneficiary forms. All of it came pouring out in a steady stream that I couldn't have stopped if I'd wanted to. Pike listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, he sat back and tapped his pen against his teeth. First question, what do you want to accomplish here? I want to protect my family, Jory and the baby. Okay. Second question, do you want reconciliation with your father, or are you done? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I'm done, he nodded. Good. Clarity helps. Third question, are you interested in revenge, or are you interested in security? What's the difference? Revenge is making him hurt. Security is making sure he can't hurt you. They're not always the same thing. Security, I said, then after a pause. But if he happens to hurt in the process, I won't lose sleep over it. Pike smiled slightly. Fair enough. Now let's talk about what you've got. The 2012 property arrangement is interesting. If you really did sign as a co-beneficiary with required consent for changes, that gives you leverage. But I need to see the actual documents to know how much. Henderson and Associates is sending them. Good. When they arrive, bring them here immediately. Don't let your father know you have them. He made another note. The beneficiary changes you're making are smart. Basic estate planning everyone should do. But they might have secondary effects you haven't considered. Like what? Some union benefits include clauses about asset distribution in the event of disability or passing. If you were listed as a beneficiary on any of your father's policies through his company, and those policies have reciprocal requirements, meaning he has to maintain you as a beneficiary because you maintained him, then removing yourself could trigger notifications. My heart picked up speed. Would that hurt me or help me? Depends on what the policies say, but it might force his hand. Make him realize you're not just sitting quietly while he dismantles your relationship. When can we find out? I'll need to see all your union paperwork, and I'll need you to authorize me to request information from any other institutions where you and your father might have interlinked accounts or policies. How long will this take? A few weeks, maybe less. Property law isn't fast, Silas. Neither is estate planning. If you want to do this right, and legally, we need to be thorough. I nodded, but frustration bubbled under my skin. A few weeks. Eldon was already moving forward with his restructuring, already treating me like I didn't exist. Pike seemed to read my mind. I know you want quick results, but rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes in this arena can be expensive and permanent. Understood. One more thing. He leaned forward. From what you've told me, your father sounds like a man who's used to getting his way. If we start pulling on these threads, he's going to notice. He's going to push back. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Not just prepared. Are you committed? Because once we start, there's no easy way to undo it. I thought about Christmas night, about the look on Eldon's face when he'd called my life nothing, about Jory crying herself to sleep, about the child who would grow up without a grandfather because that grandfather had chosen pride over love. I'm committed, I said. Pike studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right then, let's get to work. I left his office with a folder full of authorization forms to sign and instructions on what documents to gather. The evening was cold and getting colder. Snow had started falling again, light flakes that swirled in the streetlights. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Lisa from Henderson and Associates. Your documents are ready earlier than expected. I can email them tonight if that helps. I typed back, yes please, thank you. Within minutes, my inbox contained 3 PDF files, each dozens of pages long. I didn't open them standing there on the sidewalk. Instead, I got in my car, drove to the coffee shop near the courthouse, and ordered another black coffee. Then I started reading. The first document was titled Orvin Family Trust, Property Schedule A. It listed 8 properties, 5 commercial buildings, 2 residential rentals, and 1 parcel of undeveloped land. Next to each property were multiple names, including mine, listed as co-beneficiary with required consent. The second document outlined the financial structure. It was complicated, full of legal terminology I had to read 3 times to understand. But the essential point was clear. Major changes to any listed property required signatures from all co-beneficiaries. The trust had been designed this way specifically to prevent any single person from making impulsive decisions. The third document was the most interesting. It was a supplementary agreement about business assets and future planning. One clause, buried in Section 7, Paragraph 4, stated, in the event any co-beneficiary is removed from the trust without proper dissolution procedures, all affected properties shall automatically revert to equal distribution among remaining co-beneficiaries, with preference given to those maintaining continuous family relationship status. I read that paragraph 5 times. If Eldon tried to remove me from the trust without proper procedure, which he'd already attempted to do, the properties would automatically redistribute. And since I was the only other co-beneficiary listed besides him, that meant... I grabbed my phone and called Pike. He answered on the second ring. Silas, that was quick. The documents came. I'm reading them now. Section 7, paragraph 4. Do you see what I'm seeing? Slow down. I don't have the documents yet. What does it say? I read him the clause. He was quiet for several beats. Then, forward those to me immediately. All 3 files. Why? What does it mean? If I'm reading your interpretation correctly, and I need to verify this with the actual language, your father may have just handed you half his property portfolio. Maybe more. My hands were shaking. How? By publicly declaring you removed from his estate, he triggered the reversion clause. The trust was set up to protect against exactly that kind of unilateral decision. It's a safeguard, one he apparently forgot existed. Pike's voice held something like admiration. Send me everything. I'll review it tonight and call you first thing tomorrow. I forwarded the files and sat back. Around me, the coffee shop hummed with normal evening activity. Students studying, couples chatting, people living ordinary lives. I felt disconnected from all of it, like I was watching through glass. Eldon thought he'd removed me from his world, but maybe, without knowing it, he'd actually handed me the keys? The snow was falling harder now, visible through the shop's front windows. I thought about my father sitting in his pristine house, probably celebrating his successful removal of his disappointing son, probably already planning his next moves, his next business deals, his next demonstration of power. He had no idea what was coming. Thursday came cold and bright. I took the morning off and drove to the union office, a squat brick building on the edge of the industrial district. Patricia, the woman I'd spoken with on the phone, greeted me with a warm smile and a thick folder. Here's everything, she said. Your complete benefits package, insurance, pension, disability coverage, all of it. I sat in the small conference room and went through every page. The insurance policies were straightforward, life insurance through the county, health coverage, standard stuff. But buried in the pension documentation was something I'd completely forgotten about. When I'd turned 30, the union had offered an enhanced pension option for members with at least 10 years of service. I'd enrolled without thinking much about it. The enhancement included a survivor benefit and a stipulation about asset protection in the event of family disputes. I'd listed Eldon as my pension beneficiary back then, following the same pattern as everything else. But now I saw what I'd missed before. The pension had a reciprocal requirement. If I listed someone as my beneficiary, they had to acknowledge and accept certain responsibilities, including maintaining me as a beneficiary on any interconnected retirement accounts they held. I'd never followed up to see if Eldon had done that. Probably he hadn't. Probably he'd signed without reading, just like I had. Patricia, I called out, this pension enhancement, how do I verify if the reciprocal requirement was fulfilled? She came to the doorway. We should have records. Let me check. She returned 10 minutes later with a printout and a frown. Looks like the reciprocal paperwork was never completed. Your father's office received the forms in 2015 but never returned them signed. Technically, that puts him in breach of the benefit terms. What does that mean practically? It means he's not actually listed as your beneficiary anymore. The policy automatically reverts to your estate if the paperwork isn't complete within 2 years. That deadline passed in 2017. She paused. You've been paying into this enhanced benefit for years, but the survivor protection defaulted. Can I update it now? Absolutely. Who do you want to list? Jory Halvin. She printed new forms. I signed them. It took 20 minutes to complete, and when I walked out of that conference room, I felt lighter somehow. Another thread cut, another connection to Eldon severed. My phone rang as I reached my car. Harlan Pike. Silas, we need to meet. Now. Is something wrong? Everything's right. That's the issue. Get to my office. I drove over immediately. Pike was waiting with documents spread across his desk. Sit, he said, barely containing himself. I've spent 18 hours reviewing your father's trust and checked with an estate law colleague. Silas, do you realize what your father actually triggered? He tried to remove me from the will. He did, but he also verbally declared you removed from the family trust with witnesses present. Combined with his email to you, that counts as a formal notification under the trust language. So what does that do? It activates the reversion clause automatically. As of Christmas night, you became the primary beneficiary of all properties in Schedule A. 8 major holdings worth around $12 million. I stared at him. That doesn't seem possible. It is. Your father designed the trust to prevent rash disinheritance. The irony is that by trying to cut you out, he triggered the very protection meant to shield you. But he can undo it, not without your signature. And once activated, the clause may be legally permanent. Contesting it would require a public, expensive court battle. I exhaled. So, what happens next? Tomorrow I file official notifications with the trust bank. Then we notify Henderson and Associates, your father's attorneys. After that, the deeds must be updated. And here's the key part. Once the notifications are filed, your father can't make major decisions about those properties without your written consent. He's effectively frozen. And he doesn't know. Unless someone else spotted the clause, which I doubt. He leaned back. Silas, you're about to control everything he intended to take from you. I never wanted his money, I murmured. I wanted him to respect me. That may never happen. But you're still gaining the power he tried to deny you. And trust me, he will be furious when he realizes. Let him. Pike's tone shifted. Prepare yourself. He'll hire high-end attorneys and push intimidation, negotiation, maybe litigation, and you're supporting a pregnant girlfriend while working full-time. This will drain emotional and financial resources. I thought of Jory, our baby coming soon, years of being dismissed by the man who raised me. I'm ready, I said. Then tomorrow I file everything. Once I do, there's no reversing it. I want to proceed. I left with copies of the trust, Pike's analysis, and all pending notifications. The sunset looked strangely calm for a day that had just rewritten my life. At home, Jory was sorting baby clothes. She paused when she saw me. You look like someone who got unbelievable news. Something happened, I said. It's big, and it won't be simple. I explained everything. What my father said at Christmas, the clause, the automatic transfer of control. Her eyes widened. $12 million in property? Not in cash, and not finalized. But yes, essentially. Your father is going to explode. I know. She rested a hand on her stomach. Do you want to go through with this? Yes. Not to hurt him. For us, for our child. He taught me money equals power. Fine. I'll use his own rules. And if he makes our lives miserable? He already tried on Christmas night. This ensures he can't do it again. She leaned against me, quiet and thoughtful. Surrounded by baby clothes, our future looked both brighter and more complicated. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Eldon's reaction. Anger, denial, threats. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This is Mr. Keats. Saw lights on at your father's house. Sounds like arguing. Thought you should know. So he'd found out, either through his attorneys, by reviewing the documents himself, or simply sensing something was wrong. I texted back a thanks and lay in the dark, listening to Jory breathe beside me, fully aware that the conflict Pike warned about had already begun. Morning would bring the first blow. The notification went out at 9 a.m. Friday morning. Pike called me at work to confirm. It's done, he said. Henderson and Associates will receive their copy by noon. Your father will know by end of business today. What should I expect? Phone calls, probably angry ones. My advice, don't engage. Refer everyone to me. The morning crawled by. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting. Nothing happened, no texts, no missed calls, just silence. Then, after lunch, my phone rang. Marla's number. I answered. Hello? You unbelievable. Selfish. Her voice shook with rage. How dare you do this to us? I haven't done anything to you. You're stealing from us. Your father built that trust to protect the family, and you're twisting it. To what? To keep what he tried to take from me? Eldon is going to fight this. He's going to destroy you. He's been trying to destroy me my whole life, Marla. This is just the first time I'm fighting back. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. The next call came an hour later. Henderson and Associates asking to schedule a meeting. I gave them Pike's number, then Cousin Trent texted, You're going to regret this. I deleted it without responding. Evening came. I drove home exhausted. Jory met me at the door. He called here, she said. Your father, on the landline. What did he say? He asked to speak to you. I said you weren't home. He said you'd made the biggest mistake of your life, and that if you didn't fix this immediately, there would be consequences. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but his tone. She wrapped her arms around herself. Silas, I'm scared. I pulled her close. He can't actually do anything. The law is on our side. That night, I reviewed the trust documents again, making sure I understood every detail. The properties weren't just valuable, they generated income. Monthly rental income, lease payments. Money that had been flowing to Eldon but would now legally have to be split with me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. Silas Orvin? Yes? This is David Chen from Channel 7 News. We've received information about a trust dispute involving a local business family. Would you be willing to comment? My stomach dropped. I have no comment. Don't call this number again. I hung up and immediately called Pike. The media knows, I said when he answered. He swore softly. Don't respond to any media inquiries at all. Just say no comment and walk away. This is going to get ugly, isn't it? It was always going to get ugly. But Silas, the law is on your side. The trust documents are clear. Don't let him intimidate you. After we hung up, I found Jory in the bedroom, staring at her hands. The news knows, I told her. It's going to be public. Everyone will know. They'll think you're the bad guy. Some will, but the people who matter will understand. She nodded slowly. Okay, we'll face it together. Together, I agreed. The weekend passed in tense silence. Monday morning, Pike filed supplementary paperwork. By Tuesday, we had a response from Henderson and Associates, a formal demand requesting I cease all claims and agree to mediation. Pike refused. His response was 3 pages of legal language that essentially said, the trust rules are clear, my client is following them, your client triggered the reversion himself, and we're not backing down. Wednesday, the local newspaper ran a story. Local business family embroiled in trust dispute. The comments section filled with speculation, most condemning me as an ungrateful son. I stopped reading after the first dozen. Thursday, I got a call at the rescue station. Captain Morris answered, then found me in the locker room. Someone named Henderson on line 2. Says it's urgent. I took the call in Morris's office. Mr. Orvin, this is Robert Henderson. I represent your father. I'm calling to inform you that one of the properties in dispute, the commercial building at 1847 Industrial Way, is currently leased to the county for your rescue station's operations. A chill went through me. So? I said. So any disruption to the property's management could affect that lease. The county might need to seek alternative arrangements. That would be inconvenient. Are you threatening my workplace? I'm simply pointing out consequences. The responsible thing would be to resolve this quickly before more people get hurt. The responsible thing would have been for my father not to disinherit me on Christmas. You have my attorney's contact information. I hung up and texted Pike. They just threatened my workplace. His response came quickly. Document everything. Don't engage. I'll handle it. Friday evening, a certified letter arrived at our apartment. Inside was a notice from our property management company informing us that our lease had been flagged for review due to irregularities in the application process. Jory read it and went pale. He can't do this. Can he? It's just intimidation. I'll call Pike in the morning. Silas, what if we lose our apartment? The baby is coming in 2 months. We're not going to lose the apartment. Saturday morning, I met with Pike. I brought the lease letter and told him about Henderson's call. Pressure tactics, Pike said. Classic intimidation. He's trying to scare you into surrendering. Don't let it. I'll send letters to both the county and your landlord, informing them that retaliatory actions could constitute illegal intimidation. We don't have time for this. Jory's due in 8 weeks. Pike leaned back. Then we changed tactics. Go on offense. Your father is planning something public. Henderson mentioned it, said they wanted this resolved before the New Year event. What New Year event? I don't know specifics, but if Eldon is planning a public gathering, that's your opportunity. Present the facts, show everyone exactly what happened. You want me to confront him publicly? I want you to reveal the truth publicly, with documentation, calm presentation of facts. You'll control the narrative. Pike made some calls. 20 minutes later, he emerged from his office. Country Club, New Year's Eve, 7 p.m. He's reserved the banquet hall. Can I get in? Leave that to me. Over the next week, Pike worked behind the scenes while I tried to maintain normal life. The rescue station's lease issue quietly disappeared after Pike's letter. Our landlord stopped mentioning irregularities. December 29th, Pike called with news. The event is organized through the Country Club's corporate booking system, and the authorized signatory is the Orvin Family Company, which has you listed as an inactive officer from years ago. So as an officer, even inactive, you have rights to company events. I've drafted a letter to the club. You're getting in. He handed me a leather binder the next day. Inside were copies of every relevant document: trust paperwork, reversion clause, property schedules, bank statements, correspondence. This is your evidence, Pike said. When he stands up and tells his version, you stand up and show this. What if he throws me out? He can't, not without causing a scene, and I'll be there. I took the binder home. Jory watched me from the couch, her hand on her stomach. Are you sure about this? She asked. No. but I'm doing it anyway. Then I'm coming with you. Jory, I'm coming. I'm not letting you face him alone. They need to see me, see us, see what he rejected. Okay, I said. We go together. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. I finished my morning shift at the rescue station, then headed home. Jory had laid out clothes, my best suit, and a blue dress for herself. We look like we're going to something important, she said. We are. At 6, we drove to the country club. Pike was waiting in the parking lot. Ready? As I'll ever be. Remember, stay calm. Let the documents do the talking. We walked to the entrance. A man in a tuxedo stood at the door with a clipboard. Names? Silas Orvin, Jory Halvin, Harlan Pike. He scanned his list, frowned. Pike handed him a letter. Corporate access rights. We're legally entitled to attend. The man read it, spoke into a radio, then stepped aside. Inside, the banquet hall was decorated with gold and silver balloons, white tablecloths, floral centerpieces. About 50 people milled around, business associates, family friends, all dressed expensively. I recognized faces. Trent near the bar, Aunt Rhea with Marla at a table, and at the front, standing near a podium, was Eldon. He saw me immediately. His expression went from confusion to fury. He started toward us, but Henderson caught his arm and spoke urgently. Eldon stopped, staring at me with undisguised anger. Find seats, Pike murmured. We took chairs near the back. People noticed us, whispered. I caught the word son more than once. Jory gripped my hand. Dinner was served. I barely tasted the food. My attention stayed fixed on Eldon at the front table, speaking with associates, occasionally glancing back at me with cold calculation. At 7:30, the lights dimmed slightly. Eldon stood and moved to the podium. The room quieted. Thank you all for coming tonight, he began, his voice smooth and practiced. As we enter a new year, I want to share some exciting developments regarding the Orvin family legacy and our business holdings. He clicked a remote. A projection screen descended, showing images of properties, financial charts, development plans. Over the past year, we've restructured our family trust to ensure efficiency and clear succession planning. We've eliminated complications and streamlined decision-making. Going forward, the Orvin legacy will be stronger and more focused than ever. Applause rippled through the room. Eldon smiled. This restructuring required difficult choices. Sometimes family sentiment must give way to practical reality. Not everyone in a family contributes equally, and it's irresponsible to pretend otherwise. He wasn't looking at me, but everyone else was. The message was clear. I'm pleased to announce that with these changes finalized, we're moving forward with several major acquisitions in the coming year. The Orvin name will continue to represent excellence, integrity, and sound judgment. More applause. He was wrapping up, preparing to transition to champagne toasts and celebrations. I stood. The movement caught attention. Heads turned. Eldon stopped mid-sentence, his expression darkening. If you'll excuse me, I said, loud enough to carry, I have some clarifications about this restructuring. Murmurs spread through the room. Eldon's jaw tightened. Silas, this is neither the time nor... this is exactly the time. I opened the binder Pike had prepared. You've told everyone that the trust has been streamlined. What you haven't told them is that your attempted restructuring triggered a reversion clause that legally transferred primary beneficiary status to me. The room went silent. That's a lie, Eldon said, but his voice lacked conviction. It's documented fact. I held up the first page. The Orvin Family Trust, established 2012. Section 7, paragraph 4. In the event any co-beneficiary is removed from the trust without proper dissolution procedures, all affected properties shall automatically revert to equal distribution among remaining co-beneficiaries. I looked around the room. On Christmas night, in front of witnesses, Mr. Orvin declared me removed from the family trust. That declaration triggered the reversion. As of December 25th, I became the legal primary beneficiary of 8 properties worth approximately $12 million. Gasps spread through the crowd. Trent's mouth fell open. Marla covered hers with one hand. Eldon's face had gone red. You're twisting legal language you don't understand. I understand it perfectly. So does my attorney. I gestured to Pike, who stood. So does Henderson and Associates, who received formal notification 6 days ago. The trust's administrative bank has been notified. Property deed updates are in process. This is extortion, Eldon said. This is consequence. You built a trust specifically to prevent any single heir from being impulsively disinherited. Then you impulsively disinherited me. The trust did exactly what it was designed to do. It protected me from your decision. I held up another document. Here's your email to me from December 26th. Your removal from all family financial structures is complete. That's written confirmation of the triggering event. Henderson had moved to Eldon's side, whispering urgently. Eldon ignored him. You planned this, he said. You manipulated. I planned nothing. You rejected me and my unborn child on Christmas night. Called me nothing. Said my life was worthless. All I did was protect my family using the legal structures you yourself created. Jory stood beside me, her hand on her stomach. The visual impact was immediate, a pregnant woman, rejected by her child's grandfather, standing calmly while that grandfather raged. The properties you mentioned in your presentation, I continued. 1847 Industrial Way, 3200 Commerce Street, the Riverside Development, all part of the trust. All legally require my signature for any major transactions as of December 25th. I closed the binder. You can't move forward with your acquisitions. You can't finalize your streamlined structure. You can't do any of the things you just announced, not without my written consent, because the trust protects co-beneficiaries from exactly this kind of unilateral control. The room was utterly silent now. Eldon stood at the podium, his prepared speech forgotten, his grand announcement collapsed. You said I was nothing, I said quietly. You said I contributed nothing to this family. Tonight I'm returning that sentiment. Through the laws you taught me to respect, through the structures you built, I'm showing you exactly what nothing feels like. I turned to leave. Jory took my arm. Pike gathered his papers. Silas! Eldon's voice cracked across the room. You walk out that door, this family is finished. I paused and looked back. It finished on Christmas, Dad. You just didn't realize it yet. We walked toward the exit. Behind us, the room erupted. People talking over each other, Henderson trying to explain something to Eldon, someone demanding to know if the announced deals were actually happening. Security met us at the door, not to stop us, but to hand Eldon something. A notice. Pike had arranged it perfectly. A formal cease and desist requiring immediate suspension of the event's business announcements due to contractual irregularities with the trust. We stepped out into the cold night air. Jory was shaking, but when I looked at her, she was smiling. Is it over? She asked. The hard part is, I said. Pike clapped me on the shoulder. That was perfect, better than I'd hoped. You stayed calm, presented facts, and let him destroy himself with his own reaction. Behind us, through the club's windows, we could see chaos. People gathering around Eldon, Henderson holding documents, Marla sitting with her head in her hands. We walked to our car. The leather binder sat on the passenger seat, evidence of everything we'd needed it to be. What happens now? Jory asked as we drove away. Now we go home, I said. We prepare for our baby. We build our life. And we let the lawyers handle the rest. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of us. The city lights blurred past as we drove. Behind us, Eldon's perfect New Year's event was falling apart. His grand announcements were exposed as impossible. His careful image was shattered in front of everyone who mattered to him. And ahead of us, somewhere in the darkness, was our future. A future where our child would grow up knowing they mattered, where respect was earned, not demanded, where family meant something more than money and control. I thought about my father standing at that podium, realizing too late what he'd done. Realizing that in trying to remove me from his life, he'd handed me the power to remove him from his own plans. It felt right, not vengeful, just right. The apartment was warm when we arrived. Jory made tea while I hung up our coats. My phone buzzed with messages. Doug Keats checking if we were okay, Miller asking if I'd seen the news, even Morris with a brief, "Whatever happened tonight, you've got support here." I silenced the phone and joined Jory on the couch. Do you think he'll ever understand? She asked quietly. Understand what? That you didn't do this to hurt him. You did it to protect us. I thought about that. No, he'll never understand that. To him, it'll always be betrayal. And you're okay with that? I looked at her stomach, where our child was growing. I'm more than okay with it. She smiled and kissed me. We sat together in the quiet apartment, the city humming outside, the future waiting. The next morning, New Year's Day, my phone stayed silent. No calls from family, no messages from Henderson and Associates, and just quiet. Pike called at noon. You're all over the news. Local stations are reporting on a dramatic trust dispute at the country club. Some witnesses talked to reporters. Is that bad? Actually, no. The narrative is sympathetic to you. A pregnant girlfriend rejected on Christmas, son using legal means to protect his family, Eldon comes off looking like the villain. Good. Also, Henderson's office called. They want to discuss settlement terms. What kind of terms? They're proposing you relinquish primary beneficiary status in exchange for a cash payment and guaranteed partial ownership of 2 properties. Essentially, they want to undo the reversion by buying you out. What do you recommend? Depends on what you want. The settlement would give you immediate money and some long-term assets. Keeping the full reversion gives you more power, but requires ongoing legal management. How much immediate money? They're offering $3 million, plus 2 commercial properties that generate about $80,000 annually in rental income. I was quiet for a long moment. $3 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. Enough to secure everything for Jory and the baby. What would I give up? Control over the other 6 properties. They'd revert fully to Eldon. You'd also sign a confidentiality agreement about the trust details. So he'd get to save face. Essentially, yes. You'd get money and security. He'd get his properties back and the ability to move forward with his plans. I thought about it. About Eldon standing at that podium, humiliated. About the look on his face when I'd walked out. No, I said. No? I don't want his settlement. I want the reversion to stand. I want him to have to ask for my signature on everything. I want him to remember every single time he tries to make a business decision that he did this to himself. Pike was quiet. That's the harder path. It means ongoing involvement, possible litigation, continued contact. I understand. But this isn't about money. It never was. All right. I'll inform Henderson we're declining. After we hung up, I told Jory about the offer. $3 million, she said slowly. Silas, that would change everything. Would it? Or would it just mean Eldon gets to pretend none of this happened? Gets to move on like he didn't reject our child? You're turning down $3 million for principal? I'm keeping power instead of accepting payment. There's a difference. She studied my face. You really have changed. Christmas night, you were just trying to survive. Now I'm what? Now you're someone who knows his worth. I smiled. That's exactly right. The following week, Pike formalized the rejection of Henderson's settlement offer. In response, Eldon's attorneys filed a motion to challenge the reversion clause's validity. Pike had expected this. It'll take months to resolve, he told me. Maybe a year. But the law is on your side. The trust language is clear. They're just hoping you'll get tired and settle. I won't. I know. Work at the rescue station continued normally. Morris pulled me aside one afternoon. County legal called. They wanted to know about the property situation. I told them it's not affecting our operations and to direct questions to your attorney. Thank you, sir. Orvin, I don't know all the details of what's happening with your family, but I know you. You're solid. Whatever this is, you've got the station's support. That support meant more than any settlement offer. January passed quietly. The legal proceedings moved slowly, as Pike had predicted. Eldon made no attempts to contact me directly. The media attention faded. Life returned to something approaching normal. Jory's due date was approaching. We prepared the small second bedroom as a nursery, painting walls and assembling furniture. The simplicity of it, the physical work, the planning, felt grounding after weeks of legal complexity. Boy or girl? I asked one evening while putting together a crib. Doesn't matter, as long as they're healthy. And loved. And loved, she agreed. February 3rd, at 2 a.m, Jory woke me. It's time. I drove carefully through empty streets to the hospital. 6 hours later, our daughter was born. Small and perfect, and completely unaware of the legal battles and family drama surrounding her arrival. We named her Emma. Pike visited 2 days later, finding us in the hospital room. He held a folder, but seemed more interested in the baby. Congratulations, she's beautiful. Thank you. I have news. Henderson's motion was denied. The judge ruled that the trust language is unambiguous and the reversion stands. They can appeal, but it's unlikely to succeed. I looked at Emma, sleeping in Jory's arms. So it's over? The legal fight is mostly over. The trust situation is permanent unless you choose to change it. But Silas, there's something else. He opened the folder. As of the judge's ruling, you now have official, documented legal control over those 8 properties. The income they generate, about $40,000 monthly, is now legally split between you and your father. The distribution starts next month. $40,000 monthly, nearly $500,000 annually. More than I made in 2 years at the rescue station. What do I do with that? I asked. Whatever you want. Save it. Invest it. Use it for Emma's future. Pike smiled. You've won, Silas. Not just legally, you've won completely. After he left, I sat holding Emma while Jory slept. My daughter, my family, everything I'd fought for. I thought about Eldon in his big house, realizing he'd have to work with me now, have to request my signature, have to acknowledge my existence in the most fundamental way possible, through legal necessity. Your grandfather made a choice, I whispered to Emma. He chose pride over family, but that's okay, because we chose family over everything. She made a small sound and settled deeper into sleep. The future was uncertain. The legal situation might bring complications. Eldon might continue fighting in other ways. But none of that mattered right now. Right now, I had everything that mattered. The country club event haunted Eldon. Word spread through his business circles. Whispers about the trust disaster. Questions about his judgment. I heard about it through Doug Keats, who still kept me informed. He's trying to save face, Doug told me, telling people you manipulated legal technicalities. Let him tell whatever story helps him sleep, Pike called in early March. Henderson wants another meeting, Eldon personally requesting it. He needs your signature on property refinancing. Can't proceed with a major deal without it. He's willing to pay. How much? $50,000 per signature. I let him wait 2 weeks before responding. Then I called Pike. Set up the meeting. You present. We met at a conference room downtown. Eldon arrived with Henderson and another attorney. He looked older somehow, tighter around the eyes. I sat across from him with Pike beside me. We didn't greet each other. Henderson started. We appreciate you taking this meeting. There are several properties requiring refinancing. We're prepared to offer compensation. I don't want money for my signature, I said. Eldon leaned forward. Then what do you want? A trust fund for Emma. $200,000. You provide for your granddaughter's future. I provide the signatures you need. Business transaction. Eldon's face reddened. You're using a baby. You rejected a baby. I'm giving you a chance to fix that. Take it or walk away. But if you walk away, you get no signatures. Your deals fail. Henderson whispered something to Eldon. The room was silent for a long minute. Finally, Eldon nodded. Fine. $200,000 trust fund. But I don't want contact. No visits? Agreed. Money only. That's all you're good for anyway. The contracts were drawn up over the following week. $200,000 transferred into a trust account for Emma. In exchange, I signed the refinancing documents Eldon needed. It was transactional. Cold. Exactly like him. But Emma's future was secure. Spring turned to summer. Emma grew, started to smile, discovered the world. We moved to a better apartment. Nothing expensive, just nicer. Safer. The monthly income from the trust properties meant we weren't struggling anymore. I received an invitation to the Orvin Family Company annual gala. I threw it away. Henderson called. My father would appreciate if I didn't exist. Tell him I declined. Tell him to stop pretending we're family. I hung up, feeling lighter. December arrived. Christmas approached, 1 year since everything changed. Jory and I decorated our apartment with lights and a small tree. Emma watched everything with wide eyes. Last Christmas we had nothing, Jory said. We had each other. That was never nothing. Christmas Eve, we stayed home. No family obligations, no toxic dinners. Just us and Emma, wrapping presents and watching old movies. No messages from family, no calls, no attempts at reconciliation, just silence. And I was grateful for it. Christmas morning, Emma opened presents. Her first Christmas, too young to understand but delighted by wrapping paper. We took photos, made breakfast, lived a normal, happy morning. I thought about Eldon in his big house, probably surrounded by expensive things but lacking anything real. I thought about the father I'd wanted him to be versus the father he'd chosen to be. And I realized I didn't need him to change. I didn't need his approval or his love or his acknowledgement. Emma looked up and laughed. Jory kissed my cheek. Outside, snow started falling softly. I had everything that mattered right here.